Thanks to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. The beginning of 2023 is looking to be a humongous deal for me. Right now, I don't got time to go grocery shopping consistently or go to a restaurant for good eats, and I gotta budget accordingly. Times like these, I'm glad HelloFresh is here to make my life easier. Save money and choose from a variety of meal plans with over 35 weekly recipes to give you a ton of options like falafel power bowls, Southwest pork and bean burritos, or something like smoky pork rice bowls, which takes so little time to prepare. It's so easy to make. It's amazing it tastes as good as it does. Just be careful when peeling the shallots. You can also easily customize your weekly meal plans if you're feeling different, if you want to save a little extra money, or if you want to look out for your kids. There's something for everybody here. And it's all delivered directly to your doorstep. Nobody likes going out in January. It's January. Each box comes complete with easy to follow recipes so that prep and cooking take no time at all, and it's all wrapped up nice and neat, saving on waste and portion just right to make sure you use everything in the box. I work from home, so having stuff delivered directly to me is very convenient, and as someone who is keen on trying to maintain a stable weight, I am very careful what I put inside my mouth. And HelloFresh makes that incredibly simple to keep track of. And I'm a dude who likes to cook, and HelloFresh keeps my hands busy. I've been using them for over a year myself. And if you want your New Year's to start right, go to HelloFresh.com and use code SCMJ21 for 21 free meals plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com, code SCMJ21 for 21 free meals plus free shipping. And as always, your support for this channel is greatly appreciated, and I hope you enjoy whatever it is you decide to cook. Let's continue on with the show. Hey there, good to see you again. A happy 2023 to you all. Let's start this brand new year by heading back into the Mega Man series. For the next couple of videos, I'm going to be giving the Blue Bomber the spotlight again, or more accurately, his conflicted red, easily disassembled counterpart Zero. Before any of that though, I have to make mention of this again. So many of you have flooded my Patreon that I opened up at the end of last month, and even now, like a couple of weeks into January, I'm still processing just the amount of love and support I have gotten from you guys from all across the world. My heart can only be swelled and warmed so many times in a row, and thank you. I can't say that enough. Thank you very much. And a lot of you went for the Dark Roast tier, which includes a personal shout out in my videos, and so many of you went for the Dark Roast tier. So I figured the way I gotta make this work out without stretching the video out too much, and you can argue I'm already stretching the video out because I'm still talking about this, is that I'll give some shout outs in the beginning of the video and at the end of the video. That way I won't bloat things too much, and then I'll try and get to them as much as I can throughout like the whole year. There are a lot of you guys. I can probably make a whole 40-minute video just doing shout outs. But okay, so from the top, and I make no apologies for any names I'm about to butcher here. Nick the Nocturne, the role-playing gamer, Nova the Artist, Keldio60, C. Arson, John Offro, Johnny Ori Craig, Marcise Edwards, Unoriginal, Philip Kanzura, I'm not pronouncing that last name, Ghost Melon, Connie Tanosian, Video Game Wacko, Inkman, Gur, Jagmaster0527 Plays, Isaac Otaku de Carnitas Diaz, Dialga236, Steph the Kid, Guacamole, Darius Sterling, Fools Arcana, Jack Belly, Matthias Felicio, and Free Fucks for V-Bucks. Yeah, it's finally time to look at the Mega Man Zero series, the set of games that Keiji Inafune had his sights on since the end of Mega Man X5, hell, maybe even earlier. I don't think it's any secret that Mr. Inafune loved Zero as a concept since the beginning. He was, to mention again, the original design for Mega Man X before they decided to just update the classic design. Mega Man X5 was originally meant to be a send-off for the character, the series in general, getting everything primed for Zero's solo series set far into the future. But then, well, you know, Capcom kept the X series going for the time, and then it was like, let's just start the new series anyway. And, well, it's not as if the classic series stopped as soon as X began. That didn't stop them from doing other series in other genres either, like the Legend series or Battle Network. Mega Man was all over the place around this time. Good God, it's still kind of bewildering to process that there was a time where Capcom was all in on the Mega Man franchise, having them branch out into different genres all like around the same time. It was certainly a different era for the guy. But you're probably thinking, Johnny versus the Mega Man Zero series? Am I looking at every game today? Yeah, Let's put it this way, the Mega Man Zero series, while different enough in their own way to set them apart from the X games, are still to a large extent Mega Man games, which I have covered plenty of times on this channel. Now, originally I was going to dedicate a whole video to the first game and then move on from there as I did with the earlier games, but after I finished the first Zero game, I was like, that was a game, and that wasn't a good sign initially, so for the sake of a better flowing video, and because you guys tend to like when I post longer videos, I'm just going to look at the whole series today, and then for the next video, I'll look at the Mega Man ZX Advent duology, and because why not, I'll look at the Legend series too. There's only 3 games in that one anyway, I can make time for that. And as for the means of recording these, my original intent was just to look at everything through the Mega Man Zero/ZX Legacy Collection. It's on everything, you can't miss it, and I want to give thanks to my friend Linky for helping me get the display case for the Switch collection for one reason and one reason alone: the spine has a typo. Megan Man Zero. Love to see it. Oh, wasn't there also just a movie released about a robot named Megan? That's a little eerie. Anyway, so, I load up the first game, getting ready to record my playthrough, but then I quickly realized, oh shit, I don't think I'm gonna like this. The visual fidelity of the Zero games, which were originally games meant for the Game Boy Advance, when they're blown up to full screen on a monitor or TV, I think it looks awful, and without any genuinely good filter options, I can count the raw pixels on the screen. It distracts the hell out of me, and these filter options, they're terrible. One smooths out the pixels to make everything look like they're melting, and I gotta ask, when has this filter option ever been good? Why do some companies keep insisting on giving players this horrendous option? The other filter, what Capcom calls a CRT filter? No, it's not. It's just a bunch of white noise over the graphics, and it's laughably bad. But I have to mention, as I'm sure some in the comments are already doing, these games look much better when you're playing on a smaller resolution, which makes sense, they were GBA games after all, so if you play this on the handheld mode on the Switch or maybe your Steam Deck, or if you have the Mega Man Zero collection on the Nintendo DS or even the original GBA games, then the graphics aren't bad at all. These are handheld games, so they look better on handhelds. I decided to emulate the Game Boy Advance originals for this video, giving them the same treatment I did for my Metroid Fusion and Zero Mission videos I did a couple of years ago. And I noticed something that might irritate you. I got a couple of complaints that the graphics looked a little blurry last time, and I understand that, but my intent is to replicate how these games looked on the original hardware so that it looks better in my eyes. And if you ask me, this does look much better than just looking at the raw pixels and oversaturated color palette. I'm sorry, but you'll never convince me that this right here, blowing up on a monitor, looks good. It doesn't. If you want to make it less troublesome for your eyes, I recommend that you don't full screen this video. Watch it on a mobile device like a smartphone. A handheld device, you could say, which I find pretty appropriate. But enough about the technicalities, let's take a look at the Mega Man Zero series. So the Mega Man Zero series takes place about a century after the end of the X series. Exactly when I couldn't tell you, but what matters is at some point, the war against Mavericks would soon come to an end with the development of the Mother Elf, the progenitor of what will be known as Cyber Elves, programs that not only completely wiped out the Sigma virus, but could also restore a Maverick to a normal Reploid. However, a human scientist by the name of Dr. Weil, that's Weil now, not Wiley, Weil, he would corrupt the Mother Elf with the help of his creation Omega, and cause mayhem on a scale so catastrophic the planet would go nearly extinct. Jesus, and you thought the Eurasia colony falling was the worst thing that could happen in this series. My god, folks are just not allowed to be happy in these games. Dr. Weil and his plans are stopped thanks to the efforts of Mega Man X and Zero, leading the Doctor to be banished, never to be heard from again until the plot demands it. In the bloody aftermath, X would build Neo Arcadia, the last refuge for humans and Reploids, that for the next few years would bring peace to the world that so desperately needed it. But the corrupted Mother Elf, now called the Dark Elf, would still cause problems on the occasion, leaving X no choice but to lock away the Dark Elf permanently, using his own physical body as a seal. Neo Arcadia would remain leaderless for a time, but years later, a human scientist by the name of Seal, at like the age of 8 I think, would try and recreate Mega Man X to give Neo Arcadia a new leader. But this X is pretty cringe, likely because he didn't go through the same ethical testing that the original X went through thanks to Dr. Light. This X, later called Copy X, would deem all Reploids Mavericks and not only exile them off of Neo Arcadia, but actively hunt them down and kill for the sake of protecting humans and resolving the world's energy crisis that threatens to end civilization as we know it. Yeah, there's an ongoing energy crisis happening in the background of the story. It's not really the main focus, but it is a driving force. I kind of forgot about it at times, but it does have significance. But feeling responsible for Copy X's shenanigans, Seal would leave Neo Arcadia and join the exile Reploids to form the Resistance, to help keep them out of harm's way. But Seal kinda sucks at that, and these dudes might as well be descendants of the green biker dude from Mega Man X2 they go down so fast before the games even properly begin. But eventually, Seal would learn of the location of Zero, who after helping X defeat Dr. Weil during the Elf Wars, once again sealed his body away to prevent further harm. Thanks to her personal cyber elf, collect the whole set, children, Zero is awakened from his long slumber in a noticeably different body. I guess even Reploids suffer muscular atrophy. Zero, however, has no memory of his past life, which doesn't mean a damn thing, because his heroic instincts instantly kick in the moment he sees innocent life in danger, so it's kind of a moot point. And though he only has a measly Z-Buster at the start, the digital remains of the original Mega Man X would give Zero his trusty Z-Saber, and before you know it, Zero becomes the Resistance's weapon of mass destruction. And so, with the Resistance giving him support, Zero takes on Copy X and his army of Reploids, consisting of a bunch of dudes I don't really remember off the top of my head. I remember an Anubis guy, and I think there was a round elephant that did E Honda's palm strikes from Street Fighter. Really, the only ones I immediately remember are Copy X himself and his personal squad. I think they're just called the Guardians. I really like these guys. We later learned they were all created from the DNA of the original X, and you can see it in their designs. They all look like X in different battle armors, except for Leviathan, who might as well just be a gender-swapped X, but the design is still neat, so whatever. Zero faces off against Copy X in due time, and no matter the form this X takes, Zero comes out on top and wipes out Copy X for good. But the journey isn't over. Thanks to Zero's efforts, the Resistance is able to gain some ground in the war, but because Zero went to walk the earth for about a year, Seal believes the Resistance needs a new leader and elects this El Piso dude for the job, a Reploid that once belonged to Neo Arcadia, but was later exiled with the rest of the Reploids, and well, El Piso took that kind of personally. Consumed with the need to give humans a taste of what Reploids went through, El Piso leads the Resistance to a bloody battle that ends up going pretty shitty for the dude, not only getting his ass handed to him, but getting a bunch of Reploids killed in the process. Honestly, I think the real villain in the series is Seal's judge of character. Instead of learning from his mistakes, El Piso instead snaps and destroys X's physical body to release the Dark Elf from its seal and gain ultimate power. And this is where Zero steps in to say, hey, stop that. And El Piso is stopped for good. It is El Piso, right? Or is it El Piso? In Japan, his name is Elpis. I don't know why they just couldn't stick with that for the English translation. I'm just gonna keep calling him El Piso. El Piso for some reason reminds me of the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. But behind the scenes, a returning Dr. Weil is ready to play his hand. With the Dark Elf freed from its prison, Weil plans on using the Elf's power once again in combination with his creation Omega to take over the world, killing both Reploids and humans to achieve his goals. But Zero, along with the help of Seal, the Resistance X, and the Guardians, they come together to stop his plans. Omega is destroyed for good, and Weil is anticlimactically sent home to lick his wounds until he finally comes back for the finale, and then he's stopped for good. With Zero seemingly sacrificing himself to make sure Weil stays dead. I get the feeling the series was supposed to end on the third game, but a fourth game was made anyway because I guess Capcom didn't know when to stop. Wouldn't surprise me, not the first time that's happened. And not to say the fourth game's story was bad, but the third game definitely had a more, climatic feel to it all. Like, we're building up to something grand, and we got Mega Man 04 here feeling kind of like a weird epilogue. Alright, I should probably mention, this plot summary is involving all 4 games, it's not just from one. God, could you imagine? No. So the Mega Man 0 series, in a nice change of pace, is one large narrative, the actions and consequences of one game directly leading and affecting the other. Unlike the self-contained problem of the weak structure that the Classic and X series had until now. Playing all 4 games in a row, seeing the seeds planted for world building and all that, this was something I was able to appreciate more. But if you do look at it like an episodic series, some episodes are better than the others. The first game, nothing fucking happens outside of the bare minimum. We're introduced to Seal, the Resistance, Copy X and his goons, and Zero, but the whole game is just Zero doing missions for the Resistance with little to no time for some introspection or context. Hell, Zero is stoic to the point of being a fucking statue. He's so boring in this game. He's boring for most of the larger story, if I'm being real. He's a dude that sticks to his values and helps people at the end of the day, but man, does he just exist for most of this ride, which I find so strange because I would expect more when the series is literally named after him. But starting with the second game though, we learn more about the Elf Wars that preceded the series, the need for Neo Arcadia, Copy X, his Guardians, and Seal's ambitions for creating a new energy source to help the planet get back on its feet. I think this should have been all in the first game, but I guess this is less of a problem now when you have all 4 games in a collection. It does complement the larger picture. But Zero also slowly becomes more open towards his comrades, though he is still a mostly quiet loner that wouldn't laugh at even the funniest jokes in the employee lounge. But then we got El Piso, and this dude didn't do much for me. Like, I thought because of how obviously antagonistic he was in the beginning of the game towards Zero, the pompous attitude, the cocky demeanor, I thought to myself, okay, he's setting himself up to be humbled, but then he'll learn from his actions, see the error of his ways, and will deal with the actual bad guy. But he fucks up, proceeds to lose his mind, and I love his little no bitches face here, and then he transforms from obvious bad guy to actual obvious bad guy. I understand the real culprit is the Dark Elf, but El Piso is the constant presence and his dialogue is villainy 101. I feel there wasn't the same dimension to this guy as there was for Copy X. He's more one note. You could argue that this can also apply to Dr. Wild, the true antagonist of the series. I mean, his name even sounds like Vile. What a prick. No conflicting ideologies, no nonsense. This dude is just a bastard that wants humans and Reploids under his iron fist, and doesn't hesitate to kill a bunch of people on a whim to further his goals. I feel because his villainy is set in stone minute one, he makes for a more effective classical villain that I didn't get from El Piso. This is the kind of dude I love to see go down, and that doesn't happen immediately by the end of 03. It's his creation Omega that's the threat. But the end of the final game, 04, he's down for good, you love to see it. There's a tidbit with Omega that fell flat to me. So 03 builds up that Zero's body isn't actually the original from the X series, but a copy that his mind was placed into. Will certainly explain the different look. Omega is revealed to be the original Zero body that Dr. Wild hijacked for himself, but when the body is revealed, it still looks like the redesign. And I'm like, that ain't the original body. And I know Zero's different look is mainly an aesthetical one, reflecting on the series' new art style, but I think they should have made Omega look like the original Zero from the X games. Would have had way more emotional impact, especially for long runners of the series. Not that Zero would go a fuck, because he really doesn't. Again, Zero, a plank of fucking wood in this series. Multiple times, both villains and heroes rub on the fact that Zero's body isn't original, as if Zero might feel some way about that. Maybe some conflicts of interest? He doesn't. They could have done something more with that, but they don't. It makes me wonder what the point of making Omega the original Zero even was, you feel me? I wasn't bored through each of the 4 games at the very least. It helps that we see development of reoccurring characters outside of Zero. I thought Seal was alright, sometimes a little too much of the typical girl in distress, but she has proper impact in the story. It is not just there to, be the load. You will never convince me that she's 16 though. With a character portrait like this, especially by 04, fuck, look at this. That is a child. Mega Man 04 felt like it was on autopilot for most of it. I think it was ultimately needless at the end of the day, since I felt 03 was a proper climax, but there were still things to enjoy about it. I love how I brought honest-to-God humans in the story to give us some insightful perspective from folks who were, always like in the center of every conflict, especially with the Neo Arcadia stuff, but we never saw their side of things, and now we do, and at least in some refreshing conversation and layered storytelling that I found more interesting than the countless other Reploids you can speak in the Resistance space that weren't all that captivating to me. A lot of them just rang as basic NPCs you'd find in towns and such in an RPG. Harmless, but unremarkable. I totally thought the first game killed the little girl though, the one holding the stuffed rabbit. There's a point in the first game when the Resistance base is being raided and you see her rabbit on the ground. The girl's nowhere to be seen, and I thought, holy shit, dude, they just killed a kid. But no, she's fine. Someone in the team thought, man, these guys got no balls. So in the third game, Dr. Wild nukes a whole city with a missile to complete his plans. God damn, just like that.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Across all 4 games, I thought the graphics were top-notch. A nice blend of colors that strike a balance between classic's vibrancy and excess grittiness. Battle effects are dazzling, explosions are crunchy, sprite animations are full of life, though sometimes the games get very unapologetic with the sprite recycling just to save on production costs, and I don't just mean the Omega shit. At the risk of sounding like a heretic though, I didn't remember much of the music, outside of a couple of boss battle themes. Hell, even after playing all 4 games, the only one that immediately rings in my head is the boss theme from 01. It's a great song though, so that is genuine praise. There's a song that plays in the Ragnarok stage in 04 that sounds drunk. Or at least the guitar sounds drunk. I'm sure later in repeated playthroughs, I'll remember more of these tracks, but first impressions weren't terribly good. Though if you're playing the Legacy Collection, the music was given a makeover so it isn't so crunched by the Game Boy Advance's inferior sound quality. The Ragnarok track at the very least doesn't sound so inebriated. But let's talk about the gameplay, starting with 01. So this is actually not the first time I'm playing this game. I got a taste of it years ago during my emulation craze in high school. I never finished it though because I remember the game relentlessly kicking my ass. I was interested to see if that was still the case, and the answer is yes and no. We're on a smaller screen, but Mega Man Zero at its core is a continuation of the X series. That smaller screen though, can we talk about that for a second? My god, the screen crunch isn't terrible. In fact, your horizontal real estate is perfectly fine. Vertical scrolling though, through multiple games, it being the worst in the first 2 Zero games I found, it could be a pain in the ass, leaving you in a lot of leap of faith scenarios or enemies suddenly entering the screen giving you plenty of cheap shots. Enemies love to respawn after you're slightly off screen, like in the older games too, so watch out for that. And try not to dash everywhere. I found this less problematic in the later games, so I'm happy to say they do get better about this. Zero, to some extent, is still capable of performing the same feats like ground dashing and wall climbing. And as for weapons, he's seen some upgrades. He's essentially a combination of X and Zero. If you want long distance combat, you have the Z Buster, which you can either rapid fire or charge it for a more potent blast. Or if you want to be up close, you have the Z-Saber, cutting things in half with a push of a button. And I want to say now, I fucking love this about the Zero series. How you visibly slice things in half when you finish them off with the saber. Against regular enemies, against boss fights, it's damn satisfying watching their bodies split apart and explode on a glorious blaze. Holy shit, I got issues. But up close or far away, the choice is yours, and you can switch between both styles with just a push of a button. But there's other weapons you get later too. The first Zero game gives you the triple rod, which is basically just a lance that gives you multi-directional coverage, and you can pogo off a couple of things if you're precise enough. This was pretty good. Not exactly a replacement for the saber, but I did get a lot of use out of it. The last weapon is the shield. I'm not a very defensive-oriented player in these kind of games, so I didn't get much use out of this, but it can absorb smaller projectiles, and when you charge it up, you toss it like Captain America, which I found very useful against some boss fights, so not a bad option at all. Continuous use of the weapons will increase your proficiency level, letting Zero extend his combo game or charge up other weapons outside of the Z-Buster. If you really want to, you can just revisit the first stage and spam the smaller enemies until your weapons are maxed out, because you get experience from just using the weapon. It doesn't matter what type of enemy you kill, and since I'm the kind of person that gladly takes advantage of that kind of shit at its earliest possible convenience, the first half an hour of my Zero experience was me doing a whole bunch of forward and back, and then forward and back, and then go forward and back, then put one foot forward. Ooh yeah, my weapons are maxed out, and now I can do 3-hit combos with everything. I can do the rolling spin with my saber, my Z-Buster is faster, it shoots bigger projectiles, the triple rod can extend its length, and the shield does more charge damage. That's good and all, but where the fuck are my health upgrades? Where are the hard tanks? Or the sub-tanks? I'm like 4 to 5 missions, and I'm still rocking the same dismal amount of health I had since the start, and things hurt in this game. Spoiler warning, I won't figure this out until I already finished the game. So in this game, there's cyber elves. You can get them as enemy drops, or you can find some of them in the hard to reach spots at certain stages. These come in 3 different flavors. You have the nurse type, which center around healing Zero or extend his health. Then you have the animal type, which helps with mobility or summon drones and the like. And then there's hacker, which can give you a beneficial handicap like cutting an enemy's health in half. Shoutouts to my boy Beezus. He may die, but he'll be back in about 3 days. Some cyber elves won't function until you feed them enough energy crystals though, but that's easy enough to obtain. They drop from enemies no different than how you grab health, and you can find a surplus of them by exploring the stage. Still, some of these cyber elves are some stingy motherfuckers requiring so many crystals that no matter what, you gotta grind your ass off for a bit, like the elves that can increase your health or transform into sub-tanks, acting as emergency energy reserves. God, I didn't realize that so many things were tied to the cyber elves in this game. I think what threw me off, right, was the fact that cyber elves were constantly stated to be one and done perks. Once you use it, it's gone for good, and for the most part, most cyber elves offer temporary assistance like a heal or combat support. Given the temporary nature of them, it never occurred to me that they will also be linked to permanent upgrades. So what ended up happening is that I just used the health recovery elves like I would use sub-tanks in the X series, because for a while, I thought these dudes were the sub-tanks. No, those are still in the game. They're just cyber elves now. I was essentially doing a challenge run during my playthrough of the first Zero game. I had plenty of health recovery cyber elves, but when I finally got to the bosses, I was so fragile, and these dudes can really lay the smackdown on Zero. They're far more aggressive than any Maverick we face in the X games, and without knowing their proper weakness, assuming they even have any, because some don't, just a heads up, they can shred your health or disrupt your combo game with terrifying ease. However, if you do know their weakness, they drop like flies. You interrupt their cycles no problem and their health goes bye-bye. As before, this remains one of the most satisfying factors of the core gameplay. You study the boss's movements, look for a pattern, charge up your weapons, use the weakness if you got it, and then you lay it on them. But the boss weaknesses though. So I feel the series has both the same emphasis and less emphasis on this as before. So okay, Zero's not exactly Mega Man, right? In previous games, Zero would earn a new skill with his Z-Saber or something like that. That would not only act as a new attack that may or may not be useful, you be the judge, but it could also be a potential weakness for the next boss. That's not really a thing in the first Zero game. You get a handful of elemental chips that augment your weapon with either fire, ice, or lightning properties, but your attacks remain the same, so no matter what boss you're facing, you're still using the same combos and attacks as you would any other enemy. And I honestly don't mind this, for Zero anyway, because if a special ability ended up being too gimmicky in the other games, I hated the thought of just using it, weakness or not. With how it's set up here, it gives me less to think about. I just have to see what elemental weakness this boss has, if any, and then continue to keep the pressure on as I did before. It's not as visually varied as before, no doubt, but I don't mind the simplification. Starting in 02 and beyond though, they bring back the different moves with EX skills where you not only get different elemental chips to enhance your basic attacks, but you also get new skills that also have their own properties, some you may even recognize from Zero's arsenal in the X games. However, in games like 02 and 3, you only get these by beating the boss with a certain rank. Yeah, your performance is ranked in the Zero games, kind of like how it was in X5 and X6. Let's talk about the ranking system real quick. If you're thinking about playing these games maybe because you enjoyed your time with the classic games, the X series, and you want more, do not give a flying shit about your rank. It doesn't matter. Your rank is based on a couple of things: damage taken, the time it took to complete the stage, lives lost, and cyber elves used. Bottom line, it punishes you for even thinking about taking your time and exploring levels and using a major selling point of the whole goddamn series. It's stupid. Very stupid. It's only there if you want to challenge yourself, which is something I don't think first-time players should really worry about. I certainly did not. I want to explore stages. I want to farm crystals. I want to locate upgrades. The game gives me a low rank. The game wants to constantly remind me of my inadequate performance. Too bad. I'm still enjoying myself, and that's what matters. Neener. Sure, in 02 and 03, having a low rank means you can't get those EX skills. But if you managed to get the high rank in the first place and kept it long enough to beat the boss, I have to ask, did you even really need it? The base elemental attacks are more than enough, as is your selection of weapons, so I never gave the ranking system the time of the day. Shit, in Mega Man 04, they changed how you got EX skills from needing a certain rank to just beating the boss in the right weather conditions, making the ranking system entirely bragging rights. And not to brag, but I make a pretty good needy edge man. What the fuck? To go back to 01 though, level progression in this game is odd. The Resistance HQ acts as your central hub and you talk to Seal to accept new missions. The thing is, you don't really get a heads up on what to expect regarding boss fights. Mission objectives describe the kind of things you're doing, like rescuing Reploids from captivity or playing escort for this one dude, or deactivating bombs in HQ that gave me all the bad memories from playing TMNT on NES. Not to mention, if you lose all your lives in 01 during a mission, which is very easy to do considering how stingy the game is with them, you outright fail that mission, and you can't select it again. You either move on or you reload the save file and try again, which is what you should be doing because, there are cyber elves you can collect in those stages to help you out. This doesn't apply to every mission, thankfully, but nevertheless, it's a startling discovery to make. Don't fuck up or you're gonna fuck yourself. Starting with 02 and beyond, stage progression goes back to a more traditional stage select, complete with boss profiles, and I'm fine with that. I wasn't too big on some of the missions in 01, and the half-cooked attempt at a Metroidvania structure was weird. In 01, if you wanted to for whatever reason, you could manually travel to different areas without having to use the teleporter. Outside of maybe getting a few extra energy crystals, I didn't see a need for this, and considering this was dropped in the other games, I'm guessing the devs thought the same thing too. Although now that I think about it, I guess it's to help players grind crystals and such without affecting their rank, since you're only ranked when you're in a mission proper, I believe. But I gotta say, I wasn't entirely convinced with the first Zero game. Even after fully realizing the potential of the cyber elves thanks to a second playthrough I did after I played all 4 games, I really wanted to make amends for my first playthrough. I wasn't feeling the Resistance HQ base, the amount of grinding you have to do to utilize important cyber elves was tiring, the mission structure seemed all over the place, and level progression was a little samey and tedious. As you are revisiting some areas for different reasons, it's still visually bland. The boss fights are great. Again, I have to highlight the Guardians as I found these to be the best fights. But I left Mega Man 0 thinking, that was okay, but I've definitely played better. Mega Man 02 is a marked improvement across the board. Oh shit, look at that spinning Z, the CX4 chip never left, baby! Better stage progression, more interesting stages at that, though the game still suffers from that screen crunch issue I mentioned before. Enemies pop up all the time in this game and just dink you with little to no warning, especially those spiked wheels. Fuck those things. The cyber elves don't require as many crystals to evolve and do things, meaning less crystals to grind, and there's even some sub-tanks you can find that don't require cyber elves at all, thank Christ. And now there's also different forms that Zero can unlock after meeting certain requirements. Forms that can make your buster shots more powerful, complete with the blue coloring. Forms that increase your energy drops, which I found very useful in farming energy for the reserves. There's a lot of these that you can unlock by doing certain things. I didn't unlock them all, but I like that they're there. It gives the player something extra and encourages replayability. I found the boss battles a lot better in this game. The Guardians return with more tricks up their sleeves as well as completely new forms to deal with. And the new guys are no slouches either. Did that dude just drop a fucking slinky? But no, these battles can also be damn tough because of their aggressiveness. Don't be like me and pick this guy as your first boss, because without his weakness, he was tough to counter, and that multiple image attack made me jittery. The battle against these Beetle brothers was one of the hardest for me personally because of the fast-paced 2-on-1. I like how the fight ends though when you force the brothers to give each other a good... If you didn't really like the weapon proficiency system from before, 02 does soften the blow by requiring less of a grind. If you know the right spots to go to, getting max rank should take you less than 10 minutes, shit, not even that. I just smacked these indestructible things for a bit and I was ready to go in no time. This is the last game to have this weapon system though. By 03, it's removed entirely. Zero just has a lot of moves by default, so maybe 03 would be more up your alley. So Zero loses the triple rod in this game, but in exchange, he gets the chain rod. A multi-directional chain that can skewer enemies, grab items through tight spaces, and on occasion be used as a grappling hook to swing across ceilings and walls. I say on occasion because the thing cannot make up its goddamn mind on what counts as correct usage. It should be as simple as aiming at a ceiling or wall and swinging away like the grapple beam in Metroid, or Spider-Man. But the hitbox on this thing is so fucking wacky that most times it doesn't register and I fall like a klutz, and I have to stress this happened a lot, to the point of it pissing me off whenever spikes were involved. It feels like the hitbox of this thing is just at the tippy top of the point, when for the sake of comfort, it should have been like the entire triangle. I wanted to like this thing more, but I only ever used it when I was absolutely sure I could safely get away with it. Otherwise, no. My time with Zero 2 was a better experience overall because I now understood how the Zero series functioned with the weapons and cyber elves, so I was nowhere near as restricted or underprepared as I was in the first game. At the same time, I wasn't jiving with the chain rod, and the game kind of expects you to use it a bunch. If not for basic level progression, shifting objects around all the damn time, then by exposing weak points on enemies that are otherwise troublesome to deal with head on, like these shield dudes the game likes to spam at times. The stages were fun, the new forms were cool, combat and exploration was great, but this still wasn't up there with some of my favorite games in the X lineup. I also didn't like El Piso as a villain, to mention that again. Fuck him. It may come as no surprise to some that I found Mega Man 03 to be my favorite of the bunch. That seems to be the general consensus with a lot of folks out there, but yeah, this was just a joyride from beginning to end. If I'm ever going back to these games, 03 is definitely up to bat first. Where to begin? The Cyber Elves. Now some are still one-offs, the Fusion Elves, thank God they're labeled now, but those are mostly reserved for the outright broken ones and permanent health upgrades. But now you're also able to equip up to 2 satellite elves that you could use as often as you want. So go nuts with your elves that drop health pickups on the occasion, or ones that help you charge your weapons faster, added defense, increased mobility, protection from instant kill hazards, you name it. With energy crystals, you can evolve them to strengthen the effects. Feed them enough crystals and you can even convert some of them into fusion elves so that their effects become permanent, and it frees up a satellite spot for you to use on another elf. I loved this, I really did. It made me excited at the notion of finding cyber elves through exploration, and the possibility of making Zero a certified force of nature was that more enticing. It gets even crazier though, because in 03 they bring in this cyberspace element whenever you're exploring stages. From what I understand, these are completely optional, but if you decide to head inside, all of your acquired cyber elves that could be used in cyberspace automatically activate on top of the ones you already have equipped, giving Zero a monumental buff in defense and offense, as long as you've been actually collecting the cyber elves. It's an option to give newcomers an easier time. If the regular stage is giving you some trouble, you head into the cyberspace version of it, get all the cyber elf perks, and relish in the increased drop rate of health and crystals. Your rank will take a hit, but like I said, who gives a shit about that on your first playthrough? And the environments get monotonous since cyberspace areas share the same green color palette that gets boring to look at after a point, but this is still a great means of giving players a chance in finishing stages while still offering the same rewarding gameplay from previously. They did remove the forms from 02, but in its place they brought back the part system from Mega Man X. On your head, your body, your feet, you eventually get different chip modifications that can help boost your attacks or maneuverability, including a double jump that, I shit you not, I was so happy to see come back, because in these kinds of games, a double jump is so much fun to use, and once I got it, that was all I needed. Finding new elves, discovering hidden pathways of different elements, all made much better thanks to these new mechanics, and I can get away with playing stages and boss battles a little more recklessly. I was really having a bunch of fun with this entry, but I wasn't really satisfied with this game's special weapon, the recoil rod. I think with a little fine tuning, the chain rod from 02 could have been incredible, but they decided to just ditch the whole thing, and instead, we get these pair of tonfas. You can mash them back to back for some damage. You can charge it up and shove things like an asshole too. Against bosses, I found that pretty funny to use because I would get in their face and just, with some precise movement, you can also use it as a pogo stick. And I did use this a couple of times to give credit where it's due. Until I got the double jump, it was my only means of reaching hard to reach areas that had those hidden cyber elves. Towards the second half of the game, I ended up using it less, and at some points I just forgot about it. The Buster and Saber were all I really needed. My major problem with 03 is actually kind of the same issue I had with Mega Man 3. You had to go way back to that game. It's a little long in the tooth for me. You have like around 8 major boss fights, then you have 3 returning bosses on top of those, 4 if you include the special battle in cyberspace, so the game also kind of suffers from the Doc robot problem of feeling like it's padding out at times. I think almost every stage has some sort of mini-boss too, one of them being a dead ringer for that sand boss you fought in 8-bit Sonic 2, and you just don't do that, that's a crime. I know it doesn't help that I've been playing these games back to back, so I'm also willing to bet that burnout was starting to set in, but still I think 03 could have cut back on just a little bit. Still, this was a great time, not only being my favorite of the Zero games easily, but it's just a damn good Mega Man game in general. I put it up there with Mega Man X2 and X4, and maybe with a little more time, it'd probably score even higher than that. It offers a ton of accessibility for newcomers while still giving the more hardcore veterans reason enough to come back with the ranking system and the EX skills that you get for maintaining a high rank. A game that looks out for both casuals and veterans is a game I love to see. Now, Mega Man 04. If I understand this right, Mega Man 03 was originally supposed to be the end of the series. But because the games were doing well critically and financially, a fourth one was greenlit and would act as a genuine finale of the series before endeavors would be moved on to the Nintendo DS. And I think you can sort of feel how unplanned 04 was. Not that it's a bad game, I'll say now, I still enjoyed myself with this one. But you can see the cut corners, changing or oversimplifying things to a point where it's less of a Zero game and more of a traditional Mega Man title. They slimmed down the central hub big time, that was the first thing I noticed. And you know what, I didn't mind this actually, because traveling in the Resistance HQ in 0, 1, 2, and 3 was kind of meandering. Going up and down elevators back and forth through a whole bunch of different rooms, wondering if NPCs had new things to say or things to give. It was alright, but after a bit it started to wear me out. 04 is just a truck with a couple of rooms and a straight line through the whole camp. You're still free to talk with all the inhabitants if you want, but it takes nowhere near as long. The cyber elf system as you know it, gone. Instead, you get one elf that you can feed crystals to evolve, and the stronger it becomes, the more perks you can unlock with it. A lot of it being what you would expect from the earlier games, like more health or added strength to your weapons. You get 3 tiers, nurse, animal, and hacker like before, but effects don't stack up. With this system, you choose one effect or another. You can't have more than one effect in one tier active at once. So if you want a basic damage increase from your weapons, you can no longer get the benefits of an additional saber attack or double life energy. I consider this a major step down from the elf system in 03 sadly. It's easy to follow, but not nearly as fun to customize. The body part system returns too, but instead of just earning new parts after completing stages, you have to make the parts yourself by gathering materials that drop from enemies. By talking with different NPCs at your base, you can learn a few recipes that can give you a list of exact materials needed. Otherwise, you risk wasting stuff and make nothing out of it. A lot of the good recipes are also not directly told to you without doing some sleuthing around, so if you don't want to beat around the bush, just look them up online in a guide. Get yourself the double jump parts again or the spike absorber, I get it, I got other shit to do too. But unfortunately, this also means grinding a lot if you're looking for specific parts, and it can get as bad as the worst of 01. The rewards are potentially worth it, sure, but again, a step back from 03. On the other hand, if you felt like you were missing out on the special EX skills because you couldn't get a decent rank, getting the special abilities in 04 is as simple as choosing the right weather conditions for an upcoming stage. I should note the ranking system is still here, but it's just for bragging rights. Every stage has 2 specific weather conditions. Depending on what you choose, the stage can either be mind-numbingly easy to ease in new players, or extra challenging adding new obstacles because of the hazardous conditions. Your reward for sticking through to the end being the EX skill, giving Zero a new attack that can make future stages and boss fights less punishing, except for the Thunder Dash thing, that shit fucking sucked. So okay, in 01, you had the triple rod. 02, the chain rod. 03, the recoil rod. 04, the ass pincher. Seriously, I had to do a double take. What is this attack? I'm just copying a feel. I'm going to jail. No, this is the Zero Knuckle. By itself, it's a close range attack that isn't very remarkable, but it can cut through vines in this stage pretty fast, so that's cool. Its main use is grabbing enemy weapons and defenses for your own. This enemy's cannon, my enemy cannon. This gun, yoink. Oh fuck, I can grab a med helmet? Alright, I should be indestructible now, right? Give it your best shot, you son of a bitch. I get the idea behind this. Let's potentially give Zero the largest arsenal of weapons he's ever had. There is a bunch of shit you can possibly grab, if not for the weapon, then just for disabling the enemy and making them easier to kill. That's cool. Lots of potential, I can imagine. I still didn't use it much. It felt like extra work to do something I can easily accomplish faster with other weapons or EX skills. Not to mention with some of these weapons and their incredibly limited use, some things you grab do have a finite use. It kind of reminded me of Axel's copy ability in X7 and X8, how limited that ended up feeling. The Zero Knuckle in my eyes falls into a similar trap, so most of the time I paid it no mind. Though if 04 aficionados would like to clarify on the use of Zero Knuckle, I'm all ears. Until then, I'll just continue with the ass pinching. I found Mega Man 04 a pretty straightforward game, really. Like at this point, I was going through the motions in a game that very much felt like it was going through the motions. I played every stage in tough weather conditions because I figured why not, and even then the game wasn't that challenging. Bosses were a little hectic at times, but nothing I haven't faced before, and for some reason they're all really vulnerable to the basic 3-hit combo of your Z-Saber. It ended up being like the best means of attack against them, except this prick, I don't remember the name, the turtle guy, what a douchebag. He's barely vulnerable to his weakness, and that weakness is that terrible thunder poke that's clumsy to use. He has this spinning laser that's bad enough to wall jump over, but if he's too close to the wall, the little fire exhausts on his body end up dinking you and it sucks. But that is the most standout example of anything I can immediately think of though. Mega Man 04 is an inoffensive game. As the final entry, it's alright, I like what I played. I like how the story wraps up, Dr. Wild being killed for good, the fate of Zero left ultimately unknown. Could be dead, could be alive, but considering the sequel series takes place after this and I don't think any of these guys are Zero in any capacity, I think this is truly the end of the red guy. It's been a hell of a run, and it's weird that we have a Mega Man series that actually ended, you know? That doesn't happen often. Technically, I have to stress the Classic and X series are still ongoing. I know some of you scoff at me for even thinking that, but it's true. 04 was mid-2000s, it's 2023. Still nothing. This really looks like the end for Zero, and I can't wait for Capcom to suddenly announce Mega Man 05 right after this video goes live to immediately date these words and make me look like an asshole. But overall, my Mega Man Zero totem pole from top to bottom, Mega Man 03, it really left the best impression on me, and I love the retooled Cyber Elf system and body parts. Then Mega Man 04, for as unremarkable as it was, I still enjoyed it. It's a solid Mega Man game. Then Mega Man 02, it's a better Mega Man 01, but I didn't like the chain rod over the triple rod, and I thought the villain was weak sauce. And then at the bottom, but not too far down, Mega Man 0, which I want to say again, after I finished up Mega Man 04, I went back to do another playthrough of this game, and I enjoyed myself a lot more now that I understood how things finally worked with the Cyber Elves and all that shit. But the grind for the Cyber Elves' murder and the half-baked overworld and mission structure was just a slog to re-experience. You know what though? It's not a single game in this collection that I would deem bad, so the Mega Man 0 series, collectively, gets a heartfelt recommendation for me. Though in retrospect, I really did, even if it was for a couple of minutes, I really did enjoy my time playing these games on the DS collection, so if you have to play it one way, play it on the DS. But we're not done with the series just yet, because we have a set of games afterwards that are a sequel to the Mega Man 0 series, ZX and ZX Advent, and that's going to be my next video, a duology, a double review, Mega Man ZX and Mega Man ZX Advent. In the meantime, let's get some more patrons shouted out as we end the video. Probably got the names scrolling over here on the right side, but in terms of personal shout outs, I lost my footing here. Okay, so I think I said Matthews Felicia already, but I'll say it again. Nason Villanueva, Joey B, Faceman, Dote Filler, Fred Torres, Chris Reed, Fatalk123 Gaming, Cappy Dragon 2001, Felix LeBlanc, Skylixer Live, Midori Smith, Kane Schroeder, Cameron Hill, Pixelator Gadsy, 9, Zilla 2, Jesus Moncio, Adam Tompkins, Fusion Data 1400, Marion Noon, That Gamer Celeb, Caleb, AMC Men, Ever Grijalva, ETA3 Tater, TK the Inkboy, Kanu 1997, Kane Albright, Woodland Buckle, Timu Callisto, Kale Asto, Podunku, Chato Talks, Mr. Roche, and finally for today, Giovanni Powell. Yeah, I think we got about 10-15% of the names done in this video alone, and thanks again to all of my patrons, $1, $5, $10, I don't give a fuck what tier you contributed to. Your love and support is appreciated nevertheless. I'll see you guys in the next video. As always, thank you all for watching. Take care of yourselves and each other. Have yourselves a fantastic night, and take care. God damn. I'm in this for the long run.